For Russian infantry in Ukraine, the deadliest moment is no longer when they hear the crack of a rifle. Instead, it is the moment they think they are safe. Under cover of darkness, squads traverse frozen fields, crawl toward tree lines, or hunker under smoke, falsely believing the night protects them. But the airspace above them is wide awake. A Ukrainian recon drone is likely tracking their path from above, while ground-based snipers wait behind advanced thermal optics that completely ignore the dark. Through a thermal lens, soldiers are never hidden. They are heat signatures. They are targets. They are bright shapes glowing against the freezing dirt, and once marked, any slip-up is fatal. Hesitation betrays their fear. A sudden sprint exposes their path. A scattered squad shows exactly where the next strike must hit. Before we break this down further, subscribe to Military Force and hit like for tactical briefings on the hardware and combat shaping modern warfare. Let's look at how Ukrainian forces turned the night itself into a lethal trap for Russian infantry. Thermal tech has revolutionized night combat, stripping away the traditional safety net that darkness used to provide. In past conflicts, the cover of night hid patrols and disrupted enemy fire, allowing troops to cross open fields with minimal risk. But in Ukraine, that old doctrine is dead. An advancing Russian soldier sees nothing but black fields, shattered trees, and frozen mud. But Ukrainian snipers looking through thermal optics see a completely different picture. They do not need moonlight. They do not need to spot a uniform outline. They only need a radiating heat signature. That is why thermal systems outperform basic night vision. Standard night vision devices still require ambient light to function. Thermals operate on a completely different physical principle. They detect heat. A target moving across frozen ground instantly pops because warm blood contrasts heavily with the sub-zero environment. In fact, the colder the air, the sharper the contrast. This means brutal winter nights in eastern Ukraine actively work against the infantry on the move. What feels like solid cover to a soldier on the ground looks like a glowing beacon to snipers lying in wait. Ukrainian commanders have escalated this threat by pairing snipers with recon drones, meaning the shooter never searches the field blind. The drone hovers overhead, scanning choke points, tree lines, trenches, and advanced corridors, transmitting real-time target data to the ground. The drone tracks the overall movement pattern while the sniper waits for the kill shot. A fire team using the same trail twice quickly becomes a predictable target. A squad hesitating at a bend reveals tactical vulnerability. A group bunching up before crossing an open zone gives the shooter the perfect window to engage. This is not just about a single marksman with high-tech gear. It is an integrated network. Thermal optics provide the ground element with absolute night vision. Drones deliver early warning and tracking, while the spotter fuses these layers, calculating range, windage, and target lead. Together, they lock onto a night patrol before the target even realizes they have compromised their position. Ukrainian snipers near Bakhmut were reportedly dropping Russian targets from 900 meters or more using these thermal sights. That massive standoff distance destroys any illusion of safety on the front lines. Infiltrators might believe they are safely outside enemy range, counting on smoke, brush, and nightfall to mask their advance. But if their heat signature glows at that distance, the gray zone is no longer empty space. It becomes an active kill box, completely defeating traditional concealment. Foliage might disrupt a physical silhouette, but fails to mask heat. Heavy smoke blocks vision, but thermals peer right through it. Standard camo blends with the terrain, but cannot hide body heat. That is the grim reality Russian troops face every night. They are not just dodging incoming rounds. They are trying to hide from sensors that read the battlefield in real time. And while thermal scopes provide the vision to acquire these targets, Bakhmut was the ultimate proving ground where this technology became a lethal doctrine. The brutal battle for Bakhmut showed how sniper drone synergy turns ingress routes into total killing zones. This was never a clean fight with clear front lines. It was a ruined urban maze of pulverized concrete, tight alleys, basements, and courtyards, where one wrong step exposed an entire squad. For Wagner forces, the task was basic but incredibly costly. They pushed small assault waves forward repeatedly to probe the Ukrainian defensive lines, locate weak spots, and sustain pressure. Some squads breached structures, while others were forced across open ground. Hostile forces were squeezed into narrow choke points, funneled down restricted avenues of approach by the urban terrain itself. Today, we're analyzing why the Ukrainian drone sniper network went hot. Bakhmut was never just about heavy armor, artillery, and infantry. It evolved into a battle of pure surveillance. Overhead, reconnaissance UAVs scanned the rubble, mapping out enemy movement patterns, tracking exactly which structures Wagner infantry entered, the courtyards they crossed, and where they rallied before pushing forward. Down on the deck, sniper teams locked their optics onto precise micro-windows where targets might flash for mere seconds. This is the cold, calculated reality of modern kinetic operations. The drone identifies the structure, the sniper locks the target. This completely revolutionized sniper doctrine. Traditional doctrine forced snipers to wait passively, hoping a target stepped into their narrow crosshairs. Here in Bakhmut, real-time aerial feeds paint the entire tactical picture long before a trigger is pulled, providing grids on approximate enemy positions, their vector of advance, and unit size. Spotters instantly calculated range, timing, and high-probability exposure points. The marksmen avoided searching entire city blocks blind. They simply waited for the target to step into a window, cross a breach, or peer over cover. Every single yard of movement became highly lethal for Wagner forces. Operational pressure spiked dramatically as intense urban combat pushed toward the Bakhmutka River. With Ukrainian forces dropping key bridges, the river line became a hard barrier, turning the open banks into highly exposed, high-risk crossing zones. Intelligence reports from British defense channels in March 2023 confirmed that Ukrainian sniper elements positioned inside fortified buildings in West Bakhmut turned that open buffer into a lethal kill zone, making frontal Wagner assaults westward highly challenging. We need to unpack this tactical terminology to understand the battle. A kill zone isn't just a sector where soldiers take incoming fire. It is a pre-registered sector where defending forces map the routes, dominate the sightlines, and wait for movement. For Wagner units, rapid movement was useless. Raw numbers meant nothing. Blind courage breaks when every possible transit point is monitored from the skies and targeted from the ground. The primary takeaway from Bakhmut is clear. UAV integration transformed sniper operations from passive watching to network-driven hunting. Drones didn't replace marksmen, they weaponized them, elevating a concealed sniper team into a vital node within a larger, unified sensor network. This network scanned structures, forecasted vectors, and laid down fires before Russian assault groups even realized they were fully exposed. This is why the opening kinetic strike is only the beginning. The most severe damage occurs in the chaotic seconds after a squad realizes they have already been compromised. That initial round is lethal, not just for the casualty it claims, but because it completely shatters the psychological cohesion of the squad. Small infantry units rely entirely on unified, disciplined movement to survive. Point man leads, flankers watch the sectors, rear guard maintains spacing, and heavy weapons provide cover. And the team leader maps the extraction plan if the advance collapses. This tactical order seems simple, but under heavy pressure, it is the only shield against panic. The moment a sniper round hits, that structure can disintegrate in seconds. That first combat casualty delivers a massive shockwave of pure confusion. The squad suddenly loses all situational awareness, blind to the threat direction, distance, or whether the next round is already on its way. This is the exact flashpoint where disciplined tactics devolve into raw panic. One trooper hits the dirt looking for immediate cover. Another bolts forward, believing speed is their only salvation. A third halts, desperately scanning for the shooter and presenting an easy target. At this point, their unified tactical coordination has completely dissolved. They are no longer a squad, just isolated, terrified targets, making panicked decisions. This is precisely why that initial kinetic strike is so decisive. In this integrated system, we can observe how the shooter doesn't need to wipe out the entire squad. They simply force a reaction that exposes the unit's flaws. Who is coordinating the squad? Who has the heavy weapons? Who breaks first? And who tries to drag casualties back? Who runs blindly toward cover? Every panicked reaction feeds vital targeting intelligence back to our commands. In legacy conflicts, sudden chaotic movement could sometimes allow a soldier to escape. Smoke, debris, and darkness used to shield retreats. But on this battlefield, Every single reaction is observed from multiple feeds. A motionless trooper instantly becomes a glowing thermal target. Sprinting across open terrain generates a clear vector of movement. Halting to search for the shooter merely offers the marksman a static target. Survival instincts are transformed into targeting data for teams monitoring the feed through thermal optics and overhead drones. This is where the psychological war becomes just as lethal as the physical impact. An enemy squad under fire must react instantly, but panic choices are often fatal. Troops on the ground cannot tell if that round came from a building, a tree line, or a distant hide. They have no idea if a drone is hovering overhead. They do not even realize their movement and spacing were fully mapped before the first shot was fired. That absolute uncertainty paralyzes their command loop. It completely breaks down trust within the unit. Once command structure fails, every soldier fights only for survival. For Ukrainian forces, this panic opens a window far larger than a single casualty. It reduces a disciplined squad to a target of predictable panic. The sniper round inflicts the initial shock, but terror turns that crack into total chaos. A single casualty drags the rest into the kill zone. Commanders freeze. Machine guns go silent. Escape routes suddenly become choked with retreating troops. Within seconds, an entire squad loses the cohesion that made them lethal. That is the brutal, calculated logic of this system. The rifle delivers the shock, but aerial surveillance turns that panic into total control. When Russian forces flee the open fields and head toward the shelter of nearby tree lines, the engagement does not end there. The target simply transitions from the sniper's crosshairs to the drone circling overhead. Forests no longer offer safe cover for Russian infantry because Ukrainian reconnaissance drones track their every step the moment they are flushed out. To a soldier on the ground, a tree line looks like survival. It breaks line of sight and conceals movement. It represents a physical shield to run toward when the open fields become a death trap. But the reality of modern warfare is unforgiving. A soldier might escape the sniper's direct sight, but he cannot hide from the eyes in the sky. Reconnaissance. A scout drone can hover over the combat sector, lock onto the escape route, and track tiny signs a fleeing soldier never considers. Swaying branches, trampled grass, tracks in the mud. A soldier slows down, slipping into a ditch to hide, believing he has finally escaped the threat. But from the air, that brief pause is the giveaway. This tactical handoff is what makes the system so lethal. The marksman applies the initial pressure. The shot forces the squad to move. Then the drone keeps the pressure on as they scramble for cover. The engagement does not end just because the enemy reached the woods. The fight simply evolves. The sniper is no longer the primary threat, as the drone takes over tracking duties. It circles overhead, shifts its camera angle, and waits until the target is reacquired. Once the target is pinned, the final blow comes from an FPV drone, heavy artillery, mortar fire, or another hidden shooter. That tree line is no longer a shelter, it is a trap. It restricts their movement, giving the aerial observer plenty of time to study their patterns. The danger is not confined to the trench. It is the open ground, the rear access roads, the logistics paths, and the exact wooded strips where troops attempt to regroup. With overhead surveillance penetrating deep into the rear, the front line is no longer just a line on a map. It is a shifting zone of extreme danger, and infantry must assume every single path is being watched. Russian forces recognize this threat, deploying thermal blankets and anti-drone cloaks to mask their signatures. The concept is simple. If thermal cameras detect body heat, blocking that signature should help a soldier melt into the terrain. In theory, it works. In active combat, the battlefield is highly unforgiving. If a protective cloak is poorly deployed, moves unnaturally, or creates a bizarre cold spot against warm soil, it still draws lethal attention. A tactical countermeasure often solves one vulnerability only to expose another. Ukrainian advantage does not rely on constant, perfect surveillance across the entire front. That is a myth. The real edge is rapid adaptation. If the enemy hides their heat signature, operators hunt for motion. When targets freeze, pilots scan the surrounding terrain. When squads redirect, drones track their emerging patterns over days and weeks. This is a constant race between concealment and detection. The side adapting faster controls the battle space. For the enemy, the reality is brutal. Fleeing into the woods feels like escape, but survival depends entirely on whether the tracking drone has lost their trail. If the remote pilot still knows where you started, where you paused, and where you are heading, the kill chain remains fully active. This conflict has evolved far beyond a single sniper, a single drone, or a lucky hiding spot. It is a lethal race of speed and data, and brutal battlefield adaptation. The force that processes intelligence faster turns the enemy's very cover into a lethal trap. Our reports show modern warfare in Ukraine rewards whoever can observe longer, process faster, and strike with absolute, synchronized coordination. That is the critical lesson behind this combined sniper drone system. A sniper team is no longer just two operators lying in a cold ditch waiting for a target. They are node points in a massive tactical network integrating reconnaissance, recon drones, thermal sensors, spotters, strike drones, artillery crews, and live feeds, and command elements translating raw data into lightning-fast tactical decisions. When this network syncs, we kill the enemy long before they reach our trenches. We detect them on approach roads. We track them through ruined buildings. We strike them early. Hostiles are targeted while trying to regroup behind their own lines. That is why this conflict is no longer just about raw numbers of shells, tanks, or boots. Mass still matters, but it cannot dictate terms on a modern battlefield saturated by cameras, thermal sensors, and killer drones. We are tracking drone-infested skies near the front, creating a lethal kill zone extending 10 kilometers deep on both sides. Within that envelope, any movement is a death sentence. Reconnaissance drones rapidly target vehicles, troop concentrations, supply runs, and medevac routes, stripping away the enemy's numerical advantage, their armor, and their artillery. Massed forces are useless when your entire assault formation is compromised before reaching the forward edge. An armored column still packs heat. A massed infantry assault can still apply severe pressure. But once our eye in the sky detects them, that force is pinned down, fragmented, and decimated before building momentum. This exact kill chain logic is dictating small unit tactics across the entire front. While a sniper team locks down one sector, a recon drone scans the wider route, and a strike pilot waits for targets pinned under pressure. Then, heavy artillery obliterates the choke point the moment the enemy bunches up. Individually, none of these assets are new, but linking them together completely redefines the modern battlefield. Combat is no longer about delivering one massive blow. It is about executing a rapid sequence of decisions faster than the enemy can adapt. Kamikaze strike drones now dominate the skies in Ukraine, turning every basic maneuver into a high-risk operation. Troop rotations, casualty evacuations, tactical logistics, and armor thrusts now face extreme danger from swift, short-range suicide drone strikes. Drone-inflicted casualties surged from under 10% of the total in 2022 to a staggering 80% over the past year. That statistic alone proves how fundamentally warfare has evolved. The airspace is no longer reserved for fighter jets. It is a hostile, congested layer of micro-machines denying any movement to both sides. For our ground troops, there is no single silver bullet to survive this. Our infantry must operate in tiny teams, avoid predictable paths, actively mask their thermal signatures, deploy tactical decoys, and integrate electronic warfare with every movement. Yet, superiority still belongs to the side that secures the first sighting, distributes targeting data instantly, and acts on it before the hostile force even realizes they are in the crosshairs. But this tactical evolution goes far beyond snipers and quadcopters. The conflict in Ukraine proves that victory is decided by the sheer speed of observation. We are witnessing a cold, brutal revolution in combat. Our infantry can no longer rely on traditional cover. Pitch-black darkness hides you from the naked eye, but never from thermal optics. A tree line might break your silhouette, but it won't hide your movement. Smoke screens, active camouflage, and trusted paths offer some protection, but they guarantee nothing when killer drones patrol overhead. This is the harsh reality of the combined systems we are observing. Hostile squads are under fire before they ever reach our trench line, before they lay eyes on our troops, and well before they realize their entire advance was mapped out. The battle for Bakhmut proved this when Wagner's assault routes were turned into massive kill boxes by Ukrainian observation and artillery. Today, that doctrine dominates a massive front where every tree line, road, and forest, dirt track, and medevac route is integrated into a single, lethal kill chain. The enemy will continue to adapt. They are deploying thermal blankets, radar cloaking materials, dispersed fire teams, and highly erratic patrol routes. Yet, every countermeasure leaves a footprint: a sudden cold spot on thermals, a snapped branch, an unexpected halt, or a familiar path gives our operators all the intel they need. Understand this. This development is far larger than a single sniper, a lone drone, or one lucky shot. Tactical supremacy goes to the army that maintains persistent observation, decides faster, and strikes before the target even realizes they have been compromised. For grunts on the ground, survival is no longer about winning the firefight. It is about every single step taken under a hostile sky that is actively scanning for targets. Subscribe for more raw tactical analysis. As geopolitical shockwaves reshape the global battlefield, stand with us, like, share, and subscribe to Military Force, worth $13.65 million.